Welcome back. You're watching Signature TV, and it's Friday, the 24th of January 2025, and we're going to be talking about education and artificial intelligence, the challenges, prospects, and what we are to expect now that it's a no-go area if you think that you cannot infuse AI in whatever learning that you do. All right, let's welcome live in our studios Professor Ndubueze Mba, PhD. He's an Honorable Commissioner for Education here in Enugu State. Good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
How do you do?
I'm good. Very good.
Right. I mean, a whole lot of persons would say that, look, there's no forcing it.
Yeah.
It's a must. We have to inculcate artificial intelligence in our educational curriculum. But to what extent? Because again, it would mean that so many persons would not be able to even use their brain to think. But the argument would be that if you do not do it, the world is going to leave you behind.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking if you think that the infusing of artificial intelligence would, in one way or another, improve our educational system, and to what extent would that be?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's a very pertinent question. The place of AI in education. It is a global conversation. There are so many elements to this, but just let's begin with the fundamental reality that AI is here, and it is a tool, technology at human disposal to increase efficiency, to to enable automation, and to scale at unimaginable heights, ideas and solutions. But again, it comes with considerable pitfalls. There's the question of what data drives artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
How much do the systemic bias that already exists in data inculcated into artificial intelligence, and then it becomes automated, and what is the impact on human equality, on social justice? And so these questions about making artificial intelligence ethical, humane, has made it apparent that artificial intelligence is not something that society or humanists will leave to technologists to just develop, right? It requires interdisciplinary collaboration. There are different questions that have to be asked, right? But just so we'll move beyond abstract thought, we're already using artificial intelligence in Enugu State. When we were trying to design a uniform, structured curriculum, and also ensure that the way that that curriculum is delivered to learners is structured and uniform. We we created an artificial intelligence backed or enabled system that wherein we configured the experiential learning design, with AI, so that it trains the Nigerian basic education curriculum for every teacher and enables every teacher, no matter their competency level, develop a lesson plan that ensures the delivery of the Nigerian basic education learning outcomes, but also experiential learning outcomes. If we were to leave this task to teachers alone, right, we'll get varying results. But wanted to make sure that at least there's a baseline of uniformity, there's guaranteed delivery of the basic education learning outcomes as well as experiential learning outcomes. Now, when, for example, if I can demonstrate, I will I will show you our Enugu education management system, where we have all of the Nigerian basic education subjects, all of the topics, the lesson plan for every topic for every grade, and then we now imputed our own experiential learning design, which is project-based, because so that when teachers prepare their lesson plan, instead of just beyond teaching, they have to develop projects that students have to work on to solve particular problems. And you can imagine if teachers have to come up with their project design every single time, you will not be certain that, about the quality of the project design for students, its appropriateness, the calibration, and then the outcome. But now we have, with the assistance of artificial intelligence, which is which in our case is generative, right? We're able to design a uniform lesson plan template, suggestions for projects that are tailored to the Nigerian environment, right? Not projects about, that do not reflect the realities of our environment. So a lot of work goes in. I mean, the thing with artificial intelligence is it's still the fundamental of input output, right? It has to work with data. If it's just if you don't curate the data base that it works off of, or the sources, right, that it works off of, it can pull information from anywhere and then generate output that you will think is reliable, but it's not. But in our case, we have, the source base, the database that is very curated, and therefore we have predictable outcomes, but really fine-tuned and sometimes surprisingly amazing. But even beyond those outcomes, like the templates of lesson plans, the suggested projects for teachers are still able to go in, query the product humanistically, that's themselves as humans, improve on it, right, and then retrain it. And the more human input, it's really interactive. The more human input, the better the artificial intelligence gets, right? So it's really, it's not like just, because it's called artificial intelligence, it's not like it just manufactures data and people get lazy. It actually does require a lot of engagement, interaction, assessment, recalibration, reiteration, to make sure that the output that you want is there.
Right. So that's the point now. Using it ethically in such a way that you still use your head, in order to engage it. Yeah. Don't you fear that if this is fully deployed, it will be difficult for anybody to want to use their brain to think through anything?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've said, there's no alternative to using your brain, right? Because, so for example, in the example I just gave, what the AI generates is a template. The teacher still has to, teach content, right? A lesson plan, for example, tells you that in the first 15 minutes, these are the contents you should cover. And in the following 15 minutes, these are the activities that you should engage students with. In our case, the experiential model that we're using for teachers is CASE. So every lesson plan, every lesson engagement, whether it's 45 minutes or 1 hour, must reflect the letter C, which is collaboration, right? Must reflect the letter A, which is achievement, right? So that it is a learner-centered model. It's not just the teacher standing there and giving lectures, right? It must give students opportunity to collaborate to solve a problem, right? To show evidence of an achievement, right? And to be strategic in that process. And for the students, before they even come to class, they have already familiarized themselves with the content. And because the model we're using for students is called PEARL, which stands for prepare, engage, add value, reflect, and leverage, right? So, and what we've done therefore is, if you say you want to teach the different types of materials as a topic, say in basic science or in basic tech rather, the content of the Nigerian basic education curriculum is already there for everybody, right? You're not manufacturing it. AI is not pulling it out from thin air. But a teacher can teach that now. The pedagogy can be different. A teacher can stand there, have students memorize that content. That could be one way to teach it, which is the traditional way. Another way to teach it is that you could bring those different types of materials so students can see it, they can touch it, they can, try to use it, manipulate it to see what it can do, right? Or you can go a step further to use different types of materials to solve different types of problems, right? So all the AI is doing is making suggestions about what types of activities that you can do with students. It's not telling you don't think anymore, right? It's really a suggestion. And it's only able to make those suggestions based on the input and the data that you've given it. The other thing about AI that we're doing in the Enugu Smart Green Schools is that our students engage in a lot of problem-solving projects. And it's been interesting to see them spend time in the library doing English language assignments or science projects, engaging AI. Not necessarily by querying AI to get answers per se, but by inputting base data, base information of what they already know, and then querying the AI and having it be interactive, right? The other thing is that we have our Center for our innovation studio in every smart school. We have a virtual and augmented reality studio in there. And sometimes for young people, children, even for adults, especially for young people, if they cannot visualize something, it's difficult for them to understand it, right? So we can, in the virtual reality studio, we can put children in primary school in a cockpit of an airplane, because they're wearing VR goggles. We can put them in there and they can visualize that world. Alternatively, we can pose a problem to them, right? And say, if you wanted to feed 5,000 people, right, on one plot of land space, what do you have to do to make that space very productive? This is when they start to play with AI, right? And it begins, and then we say create an imagery of what that. So they begin to create imageries for them, just imageries, right, of what, and they begin to visualize that. And from that visualization, they go into project design themselves, right? So generative AI is very helpful in that sense, because that way it pulls data from around the world. I mean, we're inundated with data that we are not even using we're scratching the surface of the data we have. And now where you have a tool that can pull data, like tons and tons of data, synthesize it quickly, and give you, visualize something for you. So it's learning begins with inspiration. And we use AI to inspire our students for them to visualize possibilities beyond their immediate environment. As I often say, we are in a low resource but high potential environment. Absolutely. It means that those things that when you ask students, typically, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Or what do you want to do when you grow up? Right? Then people talk about doctor, lawyer, right? But AI has helped our students now imagine possibilities of future beyond what is, proximate to them, right? Because now they can see, I can be a ballet dancer as well as an aeronautic engineer, and that those two things are not conflicting, right? True. I can, be a marine engineer, right? And find a solution, a biodiversity solution that will help improve, food quality and solve the, food hunger, right? So the way they are thinking now is quite different
from what it used to be.
From what it used to be. And I mean, surprisingly, our learners this is very easy for them. It's almost natural. The way that they use, for example, ChatGPT is different from the way, say, my students at the State University of New York at Buffalo would use it, right? The type of queries that students at Owo, for example, who are in basic education, that input it, and the kind of things they're coming up with, it just constantly surprises you, right? So artificial intelligence is here. The market share for artificial intelligence has gone up exponentially in Nigeria. If you look around, this is the new area of investment. If we're talking about, so-called fourth industrial revolution, where artificial intelligence meets automation, right? This is it. And we cannot sit on the sidelines and watch it happen again, right? Absolutely. The first industrial revolution came, so we cannot sit on the sideline. It's not the time to fold our arms. Actually, some of the greatest problems that artificial intelligence could solve for humanity are problems that are most relevant to Africa. And the people who should design the solutions for those problems should be Africans. And it's all about information. It's all about data, the base data that we start with. For example, in the United States, one of the concerns is that if the type of security and surveillance database that we have in the US is used to build AI, AI will continue to do racial profiling as a form of policing, right? But that data has to be. So you see where people are going, because it depends on the data that you're using, right? And then you automate that data, and the outcome could be quite predictable. Right. If those biases are then,
Yes, but again, you've just highlighted one of the key challenges that AI could have. It also boils down to even the human beings, because the human beings are the ones that program it that way. So I'm just wondering whether you fear for other things like job losses, because as soon as these data are imputed and it is easy for anyone to access it, so the human interaction reduces. And maybe you wouldn't really need anybody, especially as it would.
Automation and robots, they've been with us for a long time. And so what will happen is really that the type of job and the interaction, as they say, at the factory, on the factory floor, or the ideation, room, like those roles, different types of roles, human beings will have to play, say, in production management or in market thinking, but different types of jobs. AI is proliferating new types of jobs that we never even imagined.
Absolutely.
We will feel threatened about job loss if we don't see the potential of AI to actually quadruple job opportunities, right? But for us to get there, we need an education system that prepares our children for that now. But as I often say, the youth bulge is real. By year 2050, majority of global population are African youth, not just any other age bracket, African youth. And that is our greatest capital right now, that human capital. So we can invest in this youth, get them ready, and they can actually write the story of our next revolution.
Right. Is the ministry exploring opportunities like partnership with tech companies to develop this infrastructure further?
So a huge part of what we're doing in Enugu State is that experiential learning requires two forms of integration. There's a vertical integration, which is what we're doing already, which is you start with basic education, experiential learning is integrated all the way to tertiary education. That's vertical. But there's also the horizontal integration, which is partnerships with industries, with NGOs, with civil society organizations, with development partners, with tech, think tanks, and you provide a range of applied knowledge opportunities for learners and students and really anybody in the education system. What that does is that you think about internships, right? For you, say if you're studying engineering at ESUT and you want to go and do your internship, you look around, how many engineering firms do we have in Enugu that will provide that opportunity? So this is where the state comes in, right? The state creates partnerships. You can bring in, we're getting new investments in Enugu now. We're setting up new industries. So what we're doing in the Ministry of Education is that for each of these industries that come into Enugu, we're establishing partnerships with our tertiary institutions, with our education system. For example, the high-tech by Heya Technology Group factory that Enugu factory, Tomorrow is Here factory that they're bringing, is one that manufactures tablets, all-in-one computers, smart boards. And the MOU ensures that students from technical colleges like GTC spend a considerable amount of time in those places, actually themselves assembling, familiarizing themselves, troubleshooting those gadgets, right? So, but you have to provide opportunities for these hands-on learning experiences. And it has to be consciously done as part of, as a real plan to a strategy to build up the human capital and capacity, the technical capacity of the working class, of workers, right? Because if our kids just learn theory, everything they've crammed, they've memorized, if you put it in front of them in a factory floor, they can't even recognize it. Right? So it's from actually understanding the fundamentals of technology, engineering, that we can begin to talk about designing AI solutions, right? So those are some of the things we're trying to do here in Enugu State.
Right. Now let's project. Where do you see AI in another 10, 15 years from today? Because recently, people have started talking about the ethical use of this AI thing, that the way this thing is going, if we leave it and let it just continue growing, it might come to a point where it becomes a problem even for humanity. For instance, somebody can use it to hack into...
But that's already happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
So,
it's a tool.
A problem?
It's like, but it's like saying, let's say maybe a surgeon's knife. A surgeon's knife can save a life, but you can also use it to kill somebody. Right? So the tool is not the problem; it's the way it's used, right? But I mean, the point is just that this is a technology, and it's a humanistic technology, and this is why we need education about artificial. I'm here talking about it. I know very little about it. I only know how much of it that we've tried to use in our education system. I'm not an AI expert, but it's a technology that we need our own people, right? To not just be familiar with, but to master, to lead the way it is being used, and not wait until it's being used upon us, right? So this is why, the theme for this year's commemoration of International Education Day is very, very apt, right, about AI and education. It is a global conversation. I expect that in this year, in 2025, there's going to be a lot of conferences on education and AI around the world. We might even be having one in Enugu later this year.
Okay.
But, it's a conversation. There's need for education, for sensitization, for our people to understand, to be part of this global conversation, right? One would expect, as with any technology, there'll be government regulation, right? There'll be international regulatory bodies on the deployment and use of technologies, especially technologies of surveillance, of anything that has that kind of impact, right? But look at Bitcoin. That is a word of AI, right? All manner of cryptocurrencies, right? So the next artificial intelligence enabled or generated solution is around the corner.
True.
The person that brings that solution could be a young person from Enugu State, from one of our schools, or from one of our tech hubs, right? It could be a professor. They're quietly doing their research in a university, right? But there has to be, an incentivization, an encouragement, a sensitization that this is where we are now. and we have to be part of that conversation.
Right. When you talk about this investment in AI, I mean, you also talk about whether we are even involved in it practically.
Yeah.
We understand the much that the state government is doing, but on a broader scale across Nigeria, do you see us doing something in that direction, more like going as fast as the world is going in order to harness the import and the goodies that AI brings?
Yeah, I mean, I see the potential there. I know that we already have a national policy on digital and technology literacy that that by I think year 2030, at least 70% of Nigerians should have digital proficiency and digital literacy proficiency. That type of aspirational policy that might seem like, oh, it's just one of those things that governments do. Those are the types of policies that we need on ground, because what it does then, it then creates opportunity for investment in an enabling environment for exploration and for innovation. We cannot get there without the enabling environment for exploration and innovation. I mean, let's talk about fundamentals. We need energy, we need power, reliable power.
Absolutely.
If you can't even turn on your computer, which AI are we talking about? You need reliable, affordable access to internet telecommunication, right? We need facilities in our educational institutions that will enable knowledge acquisition. We need investment in industries that create opportunities for innovation, right? To become profitable, right? So this is the responsibility of government. And we have so much brilliance in this country. When you look around the world, I mean, we're talking about AI here and there. There are Nigerians all over the world who are the ones leading this for other countries. The same thing had happened in medicine. It happened in space engineering, right? Now, the same thing is happening in artificial intelligence. So the question is not whether the Nigerians have the mental capacity and the intuition and the ability. The question is there an enabling environment for this? Our governor often talks about the need to create a system where our young people no longer have to live here to say they have Jabba. They can sit here and Jabba their skills, right? So these are the type of, but you have to create that environment. And this is why the state government is investing massively in education. Massively. You know, 33% of the state budget, 2 years in succession, to create that type of enabling environment, because the governor has seen where the world is going. The governor knows more about AI than I do. He talks about how they comfortably, and he has a clear vision of how, what role education should play in getting our people ready for this new economic reality, because it is an economic reality.
Absolutely.
Right. Right now in Enugu State, we're working on our 10-year education sector plan. And it is a holistic endeavor involving every tier of education in partnership with industry and with development partners. And it is inspiring to see that the executive board of NSUBEB, of STVSMB, of PPSMB, and the leaders of our tertiary institutions have a shared imagination of the role of education in repositioning Enugu State in the medium to long term. And that is the type of systems thinking that we also need in place, an ideological shift that we also need in place to get to the type of destination that we're talking about.
Right. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things that is needed in order to enhance this profitability or even to engage AI. You also mentioned data.
Yeah.
I mean, recently we've heard that the NCC has accepted that telecoms increase the amount for prices for data, and of course call rates. I'm wondering if you think that's by 50%. I'm wondering if you think that would impact access to AI.
It definitely will. It will make internet connectivity more out of reach.
So this is the thing where I said that whether the government even knows the importance of this increasing the rates.
So these are all. I mean, again, we are in a democracy. The Vox Populi, Vox Day. The people have to also engage. We have a parliamentary system. We have representatives. This type of conversation is very important. If we are trying to, the government has a social responsibility to citizens. Technology is now social infrastructure. Absolutely. The same way that water is social infrastructure, electricity is social infrastructure, right? So there will have to be a way that government would then subsidize that, right, and make that reachable and affordable. Since I've been since my UNN days as an undergraduate student, there's been talk about national fiber optic grid, right? But I mean, it's 20 years down the line plus, and still, that has not materialized. So the pace of investment in telecommunications network that is actually not dependent on private capital is essential, right? And that is what will also make it affordable. If the government, if public finance is invested in the backbone, right, and then we now have companies who are servicing, the cost will be dramatically reduced. Part of the problem is that when I say the nation has not invested in the infrastructure itself. So when you have companies look at Starlink, how it's taking up over everything, right? Because there's a huge need, there's a huge gap. So if the infrastructure is not there and somebody has to come create both the infrastructure and the end-to-end user service, and they still have to make profit, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised when they say, no, we have to raise our prices, because I mean, the cost of things are going up globally, right? So this is, it's a reality check for everybody, that we have to really prioritize investment in technological infrastructure in the nation. It's not something that should be just left up to individual states, right? There should have to be a national program for infrastructure in technology backbone in the country.
Well, I mean, when I saw that, I was hoping that even though the telecoms are having complaining for the last 12 years, there hasn't been any increments, inflation and the devaluation of the currencies was affecting them and all that. I was hoping that maybe at least 10%, 5%, but 50%, it's way high. I mean, and now we're talking about, getting as fast as possible to meet with what the world is doing when it comes to things like this. When you increase the price, I mean, it reduces the access of the common man to even access data.
It is a huge challenge and a huge impediment. I mean, many of us who are just giving everything to make sure to see that these visions, these shared visions materialize. You keep running up against fundamental obstacles. That if those obstacles were not there, I mean, the pace at which we could have gone would be like lightning speed. And so it's frustrating. It is frustrating because then you look at, you want to build schools, and then you've designed a great curriculum, you've tested it, it's working, and now you're scaling. And now, but you have to now think about what is the OPEX. And then all of a sudden, your OPEX is not actually an OPEX, it's a CAPEX. Because there's no, telecommunication infrastructure. So then look at what Starlink is doing. We're paying $38,000 for standard. They just jacked it up to 75, no warning. Here and there, you hear people say they're still able to subscribe for a 38. and then other people, they see 120. So it's just, that is, and so again, there has to be government regulation of even Starlink, right? I know that because they shouldn't even have made that price increase in the first place without approval from the NCC, right? And now we are, you know, if you're using Starlink in your education, many private schools and public schools in Enugu State agencies are using Starlink, right? So you can see the kind of impact that kind of almost irresponsible pricing would have on educational institutions. So this is, I'm happy that they chose this theme for International Day of Education. It is highly relevant to us, those of us who are on ground trying to reform the system of education. What I dread, one of the calls I dread getting is when I get a call that our internet is out. And we know that we have paid the subscription, right? And everything, and then you start, you know, calling. So all of that is just, because for our smart schools, we need dependable, reliable internet. You know, of course, our teachers are dynamic enough that they can pivot, and even in the absence of a smart board or solar power or internet, be able to take our kids outside and work on SDG projects, right? But the outcomes of experiential learning are most optimized when we have all our solutions working, and we need a reliable technology for that.
Absolutely. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Professor Ndubwezemba. We truly appreciate your insights. I mean, it's more like a lecture here, and we really love it. And congratulations on what you're doing with the smart schools. 260. How many do we have left to go?
So we actually, now the reality is that we're actually closer now to 268, 270. If you look at, for example, there are places where we have so much massive population. Right. So I spent my day yesterday in Enugu East local government area. They have, I think, 12 political wards. But we can't build only 12 smart schools there. If you go to Ababa alone and look at the population, right, go to Transekulu, right? You know, like we went to opposite St. Patrick's. There's a school there. Right. And they have 1,000, there are 3 primary schools there. They have 1,300 children. Wow. There alone. A smart school accommodates 1,000. Now, typically, that is just one school environment. So and then you have so many other schools still in that ward that are so heavily populated. So I mean, His Excellency our Governor will do the ones he can. But I expect that even in his future term and beyond his tenure, that it will become apparent that there is a need to provide more schools, more smart schools, servicing basic education sector, because we do have that population need. But he also encourages me to look around Enugu and see that private schools are upgrading their infrastructure and their services, right? They are adapting the model of the smart green school, and they're investing in that. And that is just gladdens my heart, because if
the challenge is coming,
if the state's model of a school is mud wall, then you can have private schools that are in shacks. If it is the smart green school, then it also reflects the type of private schools that you have.
True.
Right. So it's all around encouraging. Education is being taken very seriously in Enugu State. And as you can see, the impact is already, you know, His Excellency the President of the Republic was here. We know that other states are now beginning to build their own smart schools, right? So it's a wave, and it's already happening. It will be good to see these schools not just be infrastructure, but also adopt experiential learning, because it's about applied knowledge. Absolutely. That is what, you know, to really fully leverage the potential and capacity of these schools and the technologies in them, that we have to shift to applied learning.
Absolutely. Professor, many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
All right. We're back shortly after this break. Just stay with us.